Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is the first amongst many in a new series. This is going to be called Storytime with Lauren. This is the very first video amongst this series, and what I'm going to do here in this series is I'm going to share a very specific story. I'm going to share my biggest mistakes, lessons, things I learned from going through this experience or going through said story, in hopes that you can take away something as well. This is going to be specifically a story about the first time somebody told me that my goal was unrealistic. So I grew up in a town of 600 people, and I graduated high school with 100 other people. I did choose to go into a private college right away, even though I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. That was the standard thing to do. It was what people expected you to do. So I did that because I felt the pressures of the external world and society. I would get there, I'd get to class, and the only thing in my mind was, okay, I just gotta ace my tests, I gotta do well, like I'm spending so much money to go here. And I didn't even know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't even know what degree I was going for, but I was just going because it was what everybody told me that I was supposed to do. So I'm in this class, right? This class is financial, I think it was called financial development, or it was personal finance. It was called personal finance. So I walk into class one day, and the teacher, I could tell from day one that we had different views on life. You know when you meet somebody and you kind of vibe with them, right? Like somebody, it could be a stranger in the cafe, it could be anybody, and you meet somebody and you really just vibe with them, like you really get along easily. Her and I never clashed per se, but I could just tell that we had different viewpoints based on like what was possible in life, I could tell that pretty much from day one in the class, just based on the way that she spoke and the way I listened to her talk, and I went, oh, okay, I think we think differently, right? And we get a project. She gives us a project, and the assignment was to go out and create a budget based on where you see yourself in 5 years' time, which is such a cliche thing. Like, I honestly don't like that question. When somebody's like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I think it's such a silly question because honestly, do any of us know? We might know like broad goals, right? But we're all figuring out as we go, right? So anyway, you're asking a class of 18, 19-year-olds, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I personally, I was like, I have no clue, but I'm gonna do the assignment because I have to do it. She gave us this like spreadsheet we were supposed to use to fill out our 5-year money goals, like our financial goals. And in that spreadsheet, we had to include anything that we wanted to budget for. So if we knew that in 5 years' time we wanted to buy a house, then we were supposed to put down $200,000 for a house or whatever, right? Whatever your goal was, that was what you're supposed to do. Me being a bit of an unconventional thinker, I did not write down a house for any of my financial goals on that sheet. Instead, the first thing that came to my mind was, I was like, I know I want to travel. So the first thing that I write down on the spreadsheet was, I wanted to, I wrote a trip to Bora Bora. Now, Bora Bora has just been a destination that I've just had my heart set on for years. So I wrote down trip to Bora Bora, and then in the column, I think I put a budget of like $5,000, and that might sound extravagant, but I knew I wanted to stay in one of those very extravagant over the water bungalows. You know what I'm saying? That's just how I roll. I like luxury, I like that kind of thing. So I knew I wanted to do that when I did go to Bora Bora. So I put that down because I was like, all right, I want to do that in the next 5 years. That's a goal. I'm going to save $5,000 for that. So I put it on my sheet. And then the next thing on my sheet was move to New York City. And I knew that that was also something I wanted to do. I was like, I want to move to New York. I want to experience living in New York City. I had dreams and aspirations of getting into the modeling industry, the fashion industry. That's what I wanted to do. So I put that down next on my sheet that she gave us. And I think my budget for moving to New York City, I put like $2,000, right? Nothing crazy, but I thought, okay, moving expenses and flights and whatever. So on my spreadsheet so far, I have trip to Bora Bora, and then I have move to New York City. And mind you, I lived in a town of 600 people, where most people do not do things like that. They don't plan for, international luxury, island trips, let alone plan to move across the country, right, to New York City. But I did, because I was like, that's what I want to do. That's how I want to live life. So I go into class when it's due. I hand it in to her. A day goes by, she grades them all. I come back into class, we get our projects back, and she's handing them out, right? The teacher walks around, hands them out to you, just, puts it on your desk, walks away, doesn't say anything, right? And she puts mine down, and I looked down, and it was not an A, number one, but number two, it was the comment in the top left-hand corner that really made my jaw drop. And what it said was, goals a bit too unrealistic. On my piece of paper, I'm sitting there, an 18-year-old girl, and I'm staring at this sheet where I'm supposed to plan my life, and I really put a lot of thought into it, and it says, goals a bit too unrealistic. And then my gut spoke up a little bit. My gut was like, Lauren, you should probably go and just ask her and get a little bit more clear on what specifically she thought was unrealistic on your spreadsheet, right? So I let everybody else leave the class. I let everybody else leave. The room is empty. It's just her at the front of the classroom. And I walk up, and this took a lot of courage for me, by the way. I used to not easily ask questions or create a situation that was potentially confrontational. I used to be really bad with that. So this took a lot for me to even just do this. So I walked up to the front, and I said, hey, could you just clarify with me? I'm a little confused. Could you clarify what you mean by a bit too unrealistic? And the first thing she says, she points to one of my goals, which was move to New York City. She points to that and she said, oh, Lauren, you did a great job, but I'm not sure you understand how much goes into moving that far away, let alone moving to a big city like New York. And I sat back, and I didn't say anything at first, because then she goes on and she points to the next one on my list, which was the Bora Bora one, right? Which was saving for a trip to Bora Bora. And she points to that one and she goes, this is a bit high in terms of, money that needs to be spent on such things like vacations. I just advise you to sit back down and you really think about, what do you really want? As if I didn't really want those things. That was what she was implying. That was the invisible end of the sentence that she didn't have to say. I think I said, oh, thank you for clarifying. And then I just walked out. And I went home. I only lived 40 minutes from home at this time. My parents lived 40 minutes away. And so I drove home. And I will never forget, I walked in and I just started ranting. I started just ranting to my mom. Bless her heart, she's listened to so many of my, just frustrations. And I told her about everything that happened, and she just smiled. She smiled, and she was the first person to make me feel like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not crazy actually. I'm not crazy. So here's the thing, when that happened, looking back now, I know I had one of two choices, and I'm so glad that I made the choice that I did. When I was faced with that external person telling me that my desires were crazy, or that they wouldn't work, or they were just a bit quote unquote unrealistic, I could have very easily gone back to the drawing board, scratched out those goals, scratched out, that entire project that I did, and just scrape it off and be like, you know what, she is right. Maybe I do need to reevaluate, what's really, what I really want. Or I could have laughed along with my mom, and I could have looked at that as the first person amongst many, 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 many more to come that were going to tell me I'm crazy. And that's exactly what I did. And I share this to tell you, there are going to be so many people who do not get it. Whatever that means, like that could mean something on such a small scale or a big scale. There are gonna be so many people who do not get it. They don't get you, they don't get your vision, they don't get why you're doing what you're doing, they don't get why you want what you want. And it's not your job to try and convince them otherwise. It's not your job, it's not our job to change their mind. And just looking back on this was a really defining moment for me, because it was truly the very first time that I got that stamp of disapproval from somebody. We go through life seeking the stamp of approval from people, from our parents, from our friends. We want the stamp of approval, right? Well, in my experience, what's way more powerful is getting that stamp of disapproval, right? From somebody who says, I don't think you can do that. I think that's a little silly. I think that's a little bit crazy. That's a bit out of the box. That's a bit too much, right? I think the stamp of disapproval is what actually moves you forward. It's what moves you closer to what you know you want. And I did the thing on that spreadsheet that she told me was a bit unrealistic, which was moving to New York City. I remember on the plane ride over, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this teacher, and part of me, part of my ego was coming up where I was like, haha, I should take a selfie right now and email her and be like, I told you so. But then the mature part of me came up as well, and I sat back in pure gratitude for myself for listening to my own voice and being so grounded in who I am and what I wanted, that the external voice of hers didn't bring me down, and it didn't shake me, it didn't waver me, it didn't do anything other than give me that experience of getting a stamp of disapproval. And then I went on to, oh my gosh, my life in New York City as an 18-year-old, I got so many stamps of disapproval during that time, and I probably would have crumbled under all of those stamps of disapproval had it not been for that one professor at that college telling me that my goals were unrealistic. You know what? Go through life with the mindset that I'm on this train, it's going this way, I'm doing this thing, I'm making these stops, I'm not making these stops. You're welcome to come on for the ride with me, or you're welcome to cheer from the sidelines, or you're welcome to not watch it all. That's how I go through life now. What gave me the ability to actually stand in that and not let external voices shake me is just being confident that I was gonna make it work, and I didn't care who approved or disapproved. I could have had everybody and anybody telling me that I couldn't do it, and I still would have done it because I'm that connected to myself. Bottom line is, and the message that I want you to take away from this, if nothing else, the message that I want you to take away from this is, who cares who doesn't approve of your dream, of your goal, of whatever? Who cares? If you know that you want it in your gut, if you know that it's in your heart, it's something you're meant to do, that's all that matters. Your opinion of you and your belief in you is all that matters at the end of the day. And yeah, it's still sometimes I'm like, it'd feel really good to like write that professor a little something, just be like, thank you for telling me I was crazy. Thank you for making me feel crazy. Thank you for telling me that my goals were unrealistic. Here's a picture of me in New York. I hope this helps you. I hope this helps you see this in a different light. Getting the stamp of disapproval, I think will propel you forward than any stamp of approval ever could. Love you guys. I will see you in the next Storytime series video, and I hope you have a beautiful day.